Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies and listen to the guys who run these companies tell the stories and the strategies of what the company's all about. Today we've got Andromeda Metals here with us. I've got James Marsh, Managing Director of the company. James has been on Coffee with Samso in the previous years. I think our last conversation was way back in February. Lots have been happening. Welcome, James. Welcome back.
Thanks, Noel. Great to be back. It wasn't quite as we planned, but thanks to our COVID friend, we're still a long way apart.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we were going to do this in person, but as you said, thanks to our COVID friend, we're back on Zoom. Look, James, a lot has been happening for you guys. I mean, the story is ever changing. But tell us what's been happening, James.
Yeah, you're right. It's been a big year for Andromeda, and looking like it'll be a bigger year ahead next year again. But this year's gone. It's gone well. Now we've moved forward a lot. A lot of things have happened, as you say. We've progressed, and we are now, on the brink of getting into our production. Possibly 6 months away from breaking ground. So. It's been an eventful year, but a good year, and we've ticked a lot of boxes going through, and we there's a few milestones coming up now for the company that should be very significant.
I guess in the context of where the journey for Andromeda, when we first started to talk way back in 2019, you were basically the Halloysite guys, Kaolin guys. Halloysite guys, and then sort of develop over the nearly 2 years now since we spoke, and now the latest one is your merger with Minatour, who is your JV partner in all of this. So can you sort of give us a rundown on the motivation behind that and what it means for Andromeda and obviously shareholders?
Yeah, certainly. So we recognized a long time ago now that we really needed to get 100% ownership of the project to enable us to have the flexibility and the agility to get this project going in a shorter space of time and to maximize the benefit to all the shareholders. So we started talking about it a long time ago, and we started negotiating probably 10 months ago now. So it's been a lengthy negotiation process, but it's come to fruition quite recently, and the actual voting opened on 2 days ago on the 8th. So it's now open for Minatour shareholders to vote. So we now have to work very hard to make sure we get 90% over the line, so that goes unconditional. Now what that means for us is that we will get 100% of the project. There's going to be definitely some added value there for the existing Andromeda shareholders, because we will be acquiring 25% of the project for about 19.5% cost, and it's all in scrip, it's all in shares. So there's definitely an upside there to start with, but that's not the main motivation. The motivation is really to get this, to get it under full control, so we can move forward quickly in a very, very, very streamlined fashion. And also, we were very keen to get 100% of Natural Nanotech as well, which is the downstream R&D, new technology business, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have this whole thing integrated. So we have the production at Great White and anything else that comes through, and that is all funneled straight through into Natural Nanotech, where we have these great new opportunities that are coming through very rapidly now. And having 100% of both of those means that there's no complications there. We don't have to spend endless time negotiating deals and agreements. We can just go ahead, make those decisions, and get that right through into commercialization as quickly as possible.
Can you give us an idea of the Natural Nanotech part of the business for those that are new to Andromeda? What does that what's that about?
Yeah, so anyone who doesn't know about our material that we're focused on, we intend to be the world's biggest producer and leading producer of Halloysite kaolin, which is a much more valuable form of kaolin than the standard material. But the Halloysite component consists of natural nanotubes, and these natural nanotubes have some very interesting properties. They're a multi-layered silicate mineral, with lots of interesting charge structures on the surface and surface chemistry effects. And when you put this into new applications, then you can get some very impressive results. What we're doing is we've been with Minatour till now, 50-50 joint venture. We've been funneling over $1 million a year now into research into these natural nanotubes, into a whole lot of new applications. This has resulted in a whole lot of patents being filed, and the most recent patents we filed were in areas of carbon capture technology, so carbon capture and storage, water purification, and batteries and supercapacitors. So some very interesting areas that we've got patents in, for patents filed, I should say. But the research there is multifaceted research. It's using these nanotubes to either form nanocarbons, which go into these applications I just mentioned, or to just functionalize those tubes and use them in other applications for controlled delivery of some very interesting materials. For example, we've got research in agriculture where we're looking at delivery of herbicides and fertilizers, and the government is funding that to the tune of $2.4 million as well. But likewise, there's research going on into controlled delivery of medical treatments as well. So there's 14 projects there. We've got some interesting IP already. We're about to file a whole load more patents as well, because that technology has improved significantly since we filed the first patents. That's going very well, and I think that people who have been following Andromeda would have heard a lot about our carbon capture side of the natural nanotech. Well, this is interesting because we have a plant that's been designed and it's being built, and it's probably should have been built by now, and it's due to be delivered this month into Australia from India. This is a demonstration plant, quite a large piece of equipment. This will be able to use the activated nanotubes from Great White, and it will be able to suck large amounts of carbon dioxide out of flue gases or out of the atmosphere and convert them to a fuel, convert them to methanol. So what we can do here is we can potentially completely close the loop on the carbon cycle. We could get people's exhaust gas and convert it to a fuel, which goes back into their process. So this is a technology that no one else seems to be talking about at the moment. It's not a case of sequestering the carbon dioxide or storing it away somewhere. It's a case of using the carbon dioxide as a fuel and then capturing again, just going round and round in circles. And this plant, we're aiming to get this plant going, and we're aiming to demonstrate we can do that at a cost of about 20 Australian dollars per ton of carbon. And carbon trading numbers around the world are looking like they're going to be 4, 5, maybe 6 times harder than that per ton of carbon. So this is proven up and operational, then this is going to be an incredibly powerful tool to attract some interest from some big players in carbon capture.
When we talk about the technologies like the carbon capture, how realistic are we? Obviously, a lot of people sort of listen to it and saying, "Oh, you know, that's a fantastic idea, great idea," but are we talking? What time frame are we talking about?
Well, we've got at the moment we've got the ability to make it's a polymeric matrix we make from the nanotubes. We can make that now, and we've got this product that's been made at pilot scale, and it's working. It's very, very efficient at filtering out carbon dioxide, but nothing else. So it'll capture the carbon dioxide, and the other gases will pass through. And that's also interesting because that means it can be used in things like submarine technology for air purification, or even space technology. So there's another opportunity there, but we just haven't got time to chase them all at the moment. But we know now that the scale up of that is very easy. Scale up is going to be achieved probably once it's commissioned, which will be once it's delivered. Maybe I think first call next year we should have the scale up to this big plant. And this is a decent sized plant. It's 5 meters tall. It's about 10 meters square. So it's a big unit. And the idea is that this is something that we've got people already lined up. Some big players who want to reduce their carbon footprint, and also potential investors who want to come and see this plant. And this is a demonstration plant. So they say, well, here it is. Here is how it works. This is working now, and this is what it's doing. It's pulling out this much X amount of CO2, and it's converted to a fuel. So that is actually quite close to a commercialization stage. And it's all part of our aim as Andromeda, and how we aim to be a bit like, I suppose, I don't want to sound a bit like Fortescue, that they're saying they want to be a fully integrated green company, but we have similar ambitions where we want to be a industrial minerals company, but we have this integrated green, clean technology to us. So we're mining minerals, but we use those minerals not just to make money and fund other research, but also to develop these new exciting technologies, which, in carbon capture and hydrogen storage and transport and batteries.
I mean, the whole concept of carbon capture isn't new, right? It's not. You're not first mover in these things. So I'm guessing from my point of view that the whole probability of this happening is practical. Would that be a fair comment?
Oh yes, definitely. So this material we've demonstrated time after time and very repeatedly in the work we've been doing. There's been years of research gone in behind this. It's not, it's not a spur of the moment thing. We've been researching for years and optimizing the halloysite, optimizing the activation of that halloysite, getting the right surface treatments for it so it's functionalized the right way, and then making sure that it does what we need to do, which is extracting the carbon dioxide only, and extracting large amounts of it, so very significant amounts of it, and then being able to discharge it very easily. So it's a very simple process of heat elements flowing through the matrix. So you have a cycling operation where one side is absorbing and one side is discharging, and it works beautifully. So we got no issues with that. We just had a bit of a delay on getting the plant over because the COVID issue has probably cost us, I don't know, 6 months in that design and building of that plant in India. There's some serious problems over there. But on the positive side, that's given us more opportunity to do more research and actually get the performance improving. So it's allowed us to get much closer to that $20 per ton of carbon. And once we turn this unit on, now we're in the process of manufacturing a large amounts of high purity halloysite right now in our pilot plant at Streaky Bay. And once that's manufactured, we will be sending it to Newcastle for conversion to the matrix material. And as soon as the plant's turned on, we'll be collecting data on that, and we'll be further optimizing it. And it should be a relatively quick process.
I guess it makes sense. If I remember going now, as you're talking, my memory goes back to our first conversation. Well, it could have been our second conversation. And you were talking about how you might be looking at going down, doing a vertical integration of the business, which is what you're talking about now, right? You've got the halloysite and things like that, and you're actually going downstream to this part of the business flow.
Exactly, yeah.
So going back to the start of everything, how is that mine, the resource and getting that stuff out of the ground, how is that part of the business going?
Yes, this has been another interesting year in that development of the mine and the plan and the feasibility studies that we've been doing. So when I last spoke to you, I'm just trying to remember now the sequence of events here, but back then we were fully focused on the ceramic product out of the mine, which was halloysite kaolin for high quality porcelain. We signed up an offtake with a Japanese company after 2 years of work, but then we realized that we had some ultra high purity kaolin in the mining area, so in our mining lease area, which was a superb additive for paint. And in the paint sector, there's an area where the top 10% of that business, where the real high purity kaolin with the high brightness, low impurities, fine particle size is worth a lot of money. So we incorporated that into our feasibility studies, signed up a binding offtake for 70,000 tons a year at a very good price. So that required a change in what we were doing. So due to that, we had to delay our definitive feasibility study because we wanted to incorporate that paint product into it. That took a long time because we had to completely change the mine design. It involved changing the mine start point from a southern part to actually to a northern part of the whole mining area. So big changes there. Kaolin is a relatively easy material to define geologically. It's easy to process, it's easy to mine, but to get a product out of it is actually quite complex because you're balancing a whole number of different properties there. So you're looking at the brightness of particle size, the impurities like the iron, the titania, the potassium oxide, the sodium oxide, and all those impurities have to be balanced out and blended to give us a consistent product over possibly 30 years of mine life. So to create a mine, you're not just getting for example, like a gold mine, you'd just be getting a grade of copper grade, gold grade out of the mine, grams per ton. Relatively straightforward. For us, we have to work out all those different factors have to be put into the mine plan. So we know that month after month for 30 years, we'll get the same high quality product. So it was a big job to do that. It's taken a while, and we got to the point where we were ready to go again with our definitive feasibility study. But then we managed to get the Minatour deal to a point of agreement, which meant that we had to put the bidder statement out, and that was no easy task. That was probably 3 or 4 months of job behind that, or work behind that. So it means that now the definitive feasibility study has to be delayed until we get this deal over the line, which is going to be end of January, because we can't put that sort of material information out into market when Minatour shareholders are making their decision based on what we have right now. So that's gone well. I mean, we've progressed well with that. It has given, on the positive side, it's given us now the opportunity to actually fine-tune the definitive study a bit more. We've talked about doing direct shipping or DSO previously, but now we've got a bit more time to look at that, because now the value of our material has been going up in the interim period, and now the sand that we have in our ore is actually worth money due to a big shortage of construction sand in certain areas. So it's given us a chance to incorporate that. But that's progressing well, and we will get that out in first quarter next year. As soon as the Minatour deal is over the line, and we are 100% ownership of that, we'll release our definitive feasibility study. And by then we should we have the mining lease right behind us. Now we've been talking about the fact that we expect to get that by end of the year. It's out of our control to some extent. It's a government process, but it's gone overdue. It's overdue now by several months. It's not due to any fault by us. No, we've been told there's absolutely no red flags, not even any orange flags. It's all green flags. We've ticked every box. We actually had a meeting with the government this week, so we do know that it's now been progressed to the next level. It's gone to the Tenement Review Committee, which is the final stage before sign-off. So we expect to get our draft conditions imminently, any day now. So we still look like we're on track to get our mining lease by the end of the year. So that's going to be another huge milestone ticked off for us. That means we just got to finish our environmental sign-off before we can break ground.
I mean, on that note about the delay, I've heard a few of my clients talk about how there's been a hold up in administration side of things, because obviously with COVID and the labour issue, and obviously you've touched on the fact that the delay in your shipping and things like that. I think that's just part and parcel of the business in today's world. That's a factor that wasn't around before, but probably more likely to a factor now. And one of the things I'm quite interested in is, so you mentioned that the pricing of your products have gone up, because if you look at the metal pricing and what metals have been sort of increasing in demand or in price, there's a big shift, I guess. This, and some comments have been because of this, I'll drive to no emission, and suddenly there's a bigger need for all these things. Can you share your thoughts on what obviously you're talking to the market and your customers, potential customers? What's the thoughts behind that? Because there seemed to be a shift in commodities that weren't popular but are now more popular.
Yeah, well, I think it's all part of this carbon reduction around the world now, reduction of global emissions and decarbonisation of the planet. Now that's driving all of this, and I heard a prominent speaker recently say that if the whole of America goes green, which it intends to now, and every car goes electric in America and they go green completely, that's going to require a 6,000% increase in mining globally. So you're talking about orders of magnitude of increase in raw materials required for all these different changes to decarbonisation. So I think that's driving all of these areas at the moment. Now, these things cannot happen without more mining, and mining of the right materials. So that's just driving this all forward in a big way, and that's why we're very keen, to be seen as contributing to that. by not just providing the industrial minerals behind this, which are required for all aspects of these, this decarbonisation, but also involved in the actual process itself, in the areas of batteries and as I mentioned, carbon capture, and also in water purification was another big area, big global problem. So we want to, we can see that this is happening. That with our minerals itself, there's been mines being closed down around the world, and particularly in China, they've shut down the mines that were producing these minerals, and they won't allow new ones to be open. They're really clamping down quite hard on that. So this is why we're getting a big increase in interest from particularly in China for our raw materials. Now, whether how much DSO we may sell them and what price, the price is going up, which is good. Demand's going up, but we want to make sure we capture as much value as we can, value for the shareholders. So we are looking quite carefully at that. But we're acutely aware that we don't want to cause any more dilution by raising money or raising large amounts of money in the future. So we're looking at opportunities to get early cash flow by using these new opportunities that are arising due to the increased interest in raw materials. Early cash flow, so we can then get a bit of a war chest built up, whilst we're also chasing any debt funding that we may need, and that will come after the DFS is out. We'll then move to a bankable feasibility study, and we're already talking to a number of banks who are showing interest in funding us, but we can't do that until the definitive feasibility study is out, and then we'll drive that forward as quickly as possible.
When we look at Andromeda today, obviously, as we've said, things have changed, and we've gone through the process of what you are going to become and things like that. From an investor point of view, how do people see Andromeda, today, or in 2 years' time, or in 5 years' time? How they're seen? Because from my point of view, we've had several discussions over the 2 years. You have changed of such, right? Before you were sort of looking for stuff, and maybe you may have it, but now you're way down the vertical sort of integration loop. So yeah, how do investors look at you now, or how do you think they should look at you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we're some ways we're quite unique, because we've got something like 13,000 retail shareholders now, and we have a very passionate group, like as a core group, who follow us very closely, and they listen to what we say all the time, and they're very involved in what we're doing. And I think that what's caught people's attention is that initially we were a potential kaolin miner, and we had very little interest in that. But once they found out that we actually had something different, it was an industrial mineral that's in demand, it's worth more in the market, and that was the first sort of trigger point when interest grew in Andromeda. And back then I knew that there were some other opportunities for us down the pipeline, but we had to reach that first stage. So we had to demonstrate that we had access to a very mature market, which is the ceramics and the paint business now. So a mature market that wants our material and needs it, is growing. But once we've secured that underwrites the business, that then opens up all these other opportunities, opens up the doors to these new ideas that we've been working on. And the first one that we started talking about, I suppose, was using our material in concrete. And that was something that I introduced a few months ago now. It seemed to get very good market attention, because people actually understood that this is a concrete, something they use every day. Now there's some form, and it's such a, I think there's something like 2 tons of concrete for every person in the world. So we got something that can be used in that, and then that is very, very exciting. So that was the first new idea we had. That's still progressing very well. Now we've now got approval for use in concrete. So we're just waiting now to get a resource on that particular type of halloysite kaolin, because it is a specific type of halloysite kaolin that we have in our mine design, but we need to get a resource first, and we'll get some contracts signed up commercially then, which is another big exciting step forward. So once we did that, people started to realize that we're probably not just an ordinary industrial minerals company. We got something that's quite special here, and then we start talking about these new applications that we can grow into by using the halloysite, which I've mentioned before is the most researched clay mineral in the world. So there's thousands of papers now on research and how halloysite can be used in a vast array of different applications. And now some of those are will never happen. They'll never get commercialized. But there's, if 10% of those get commercialized, we're talking about hundreds of new applications, which potentially very, very large potential application areas. But we've also developed new ones ourselves. Now we've realized what the opportunity here is, and we've been talking about these areas like the carbon capture and the hydrogen for a long time. But now it seems like the world's catching up with these opportunities. And the time is just right for us, because now the world needs these solutions. They're looking for them around the world, and we have got something here that's coming to fruition just at the right time.
When you spoke about the concrete part of the business, and did you say that there's a specific type of halloysite that you need, or a specific type of kaolin that you need for that particular component of the business?
It is. So it's got to be halloysite kaolin. So that's something we identified. Now this is something that we realised that the chemistry of the halloysite is quite unique. It's got not just this very big surface area and a very unique structure, but also it's the type of halloysite. So all halloysites aren't the same. There's some very different types of halloysite. And in this process, we've been very thorough. We've actually sourced halloysite from small mines around the whole world. From places as far away as USA and Turkey and other areas in China. So we've benchmarked our halloysite against all halloysite that's around, and nothing else works. We got the only one we can tell, the only one that works, and works really, really very well. It gives a spectacular result in concrete. I don't want to give too much away here, because we have got a lot of people already trying to follow us right now and trying to copy what we're doing. But we've learned a tremendous amount in the last 3 years, and it's a combination of the halloysite kaolin, the right type of halloysite kaolin, the right crystallite type of halloysite kaolin, and also the right chemistry. And when you got those in combination, then you get this very, very strong pronounced effect in concrete. But not just in concrete. There's a whole load of new applications that we can move into now. Once we have a resource on that, I'm confident there's about three or four other large industrial sectors where there's high solid slurries that need a stabilizer and need a suspension aid like this material, and this will work very well. We've tested in some already. We haven't said anything about it yet, but we've got approvals going through now in those areas, and it looks like that the only problem we're going to have with this material is making enough of it. And the great thing here is it's much higher margin material than anything else we can make, and it's much easier. The plant that we are currently designing will be able to make numerous products from the same plant, same components. So we're better to make the ceramic grade, the paint grade, which are two core, very mature products that will give us our cash flow early. But it'll also be able to make the HRM, we call it, which is our halloysite rheology modifier for concrete. And that just needs screening. It just needs wet screening, the first stage of the plant, and it's done. Then it goes to a final product, but much higher margin. So that'll be great. We've also got preliminary approvals in cosmetics. So we've had some cosmetic testing done. Halloysite is highly valued in that area. Again, that's going to be it's got to be chemical free, but we can do that. We can screen it, and we can make a product there that's worth thousands of dollars a ton. And we move on to the next stage with that. So we have a very state-of-the-art, modern, flexible plant that can make these not just the very mature commercial products, but these new, very exciting, very high-value industrial minerals. And that's all happening as we speak in the plant design.
Going forward, obviously, we've spoken a fair bit in terms of, what you are and where you guys will be going to. How do you want the public to see Andromeda? Are you a kaolin with halloysite, or are you a halloysite kaolin company? And if there is a difference, what is that?
I think initially we want to be seen as an industrial minerals company, which has a wide range of industrial minerals going into a wide range of sectors. So a diversified industrial minerals company. So it'll be a combination of the halloysite, kaolin, and the kaolin itself, going to a number of different sectors and in a number of different parts of the world. So that's initially what we want to be, but we also see ourselves as having this integrated, clean technology business. And this is all part of getting the natural nanotech and the Great White aligned 100% ownership, because now we can channel all the materials from Great White, we can channel straight through into natural nanotech. with no issues, no complications, and we can really get that green side of our business expanded, commercialized quickly, and then we would like to diversify that. And we're getting new breakthroughs all the time, and I've got a meeting this next week again with the university, talking about the new patents we're going to be actually filing next week. And this is new breakthroughs in what we're doing with the Halloysite, in the battery technology, and in the water purification, and in the hydrogen. So there's going to be some new announcements coming out there soon on those areas, and very exciting ones. And so we can see as a great opportunity for Andromeda here to be a world leader in Halloysite Kaolin, but also the world leader in integrating that into green technologies and very environmental friendly technologies that we can make a real difference here to the global issues on carbon.
I can see that. I mean, the movement with that green space is now shifting, and as I said, there seems to be a lot of change in metal demand, because I think there is that suddenly realization that a lot of these things that were maybe not in vogue back then are in vogue now, because there is a new sector opening up that's trying to be green and be environmentally friendly in that sense. Which again, we can go into another one of your projects. I've seen, obviously I went through your presentation to see where you guys are at, because you also have another one of my favorites, which is an ISR copper project in South Australia. Can you elaborate on that part?
Yeah, certainly. You're right. This is a new environmentally friendly form of mining. This is the invisible mine, as they call it, and we have a joint venture farming agreement with Enviro Copper, which is the Alpha project in South Australia. Now they're progressing very well. They had over $4 million of government funding to progress their in situ recovery process for copper, and it seems to be working exceptionally well. So there's a bit of a tie-up here between us, Enviro Copper, and Thor Mining, who also have a project in the same area and have a joint venture with Enviro Copper. So it looks like that we have some very large tenements there at a place called Minatour in South Australia. This is a highly prospective area for copper and gold over the years. That it was called the Golden Triangle many years ago, and that area of South Australia actually supported the whole South Australian government in the early, in the turn of the century. All of their profit, all their GDP was funded by that area of South Australia. So very, very prospective area. And we now have realized that what we have there is actually potentially worth some serious money. The amount of copper that could be recovered from that ground using this very low impact process. I mean, you couldn't get much more low impact for a mining process. You just put one pipe in, you pipe down this lixiviant, which is some sort of water-based solvent. It just washes away the copper, and you pump it out the other side and purify it. So looking like there's a very significant amount of copper in the area. The joint venture area we have with Enviro Copper is only 1/3 of the whole of our tenements there, and the bottom 2/3, and we believe has got some other very significant copper in the ground there, possibly also gold, we don't know. But so that's an exciting development, and I think that they're doing some pioneering work in this area. In Australia, they're the leading experts in situ recovery for copper. And they're the right people to push us through to the next stage. So, yeah, we're excited by that. This is something that's not really been included in the Andromeda valuation, but I think it's going to come in next year and probably comes some quite significant way. And as you say, copper, every electric car needs something like 20 kilos of copper, more than it would with a conventional car. So this is a material that's going to be really in high demand.
Yeah, I think, I wrote about ISR a while ago, and we just had a conversation with Thor Mining, who have a JV with Enviro Copper as well. And, we went through the process, and look, it's if all the boxes get ticked, you guys could be a producer without even realizing that you can be a producer in very, very short time. And the capex to get this up and running would be not like a conventional copper mine, and you're in that ESG space, green space again. So this could happen if all the boxes get ticked, as as processes go, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's right. It's subject to the government approvals, which is always seems to be the slowest part. But you're right. It's this one is they like this one because it's it's you actually don't damage the ground at all. So once you've moved on, you take your pipes out, then it's like nothing's ever happened. In that part of the world, is the water's hypersaline underground, so you can't use it anyway. It's not good for anything. So putting this, which is a water-based lixiviant down there, is not going to have any effect environmentally, and yet it'll potentially yield vast amounts of copper, which, like I say, at very, very low cost. So, yeah, certainly exciting one there, and we're watching that space closely because there's one of our joint ventures. We have another one with a gold project in South Australia, Woodner, with Cobra. They're doing some drilling again soon, and they're looking like they're quite optimistic about getting some good gold strikes there as well. So there's other parts of we're not a one-trick pony here as Andromeda, but we are fully focused on our Great White project and what we're doing there. And that is, we don't want to lose attention from that. So that's why we joint venture these other things out, and they're actually operated and funded by JV partners, which is a great situation to be in when they move forward like this one has.
I mean, look, when we look at your price, the chart of where your share price has gone, from the time when we first spoke, it was like less than 5 cents. I think you hit a high of 50 something, if I'm not mistaken.
In the 40s.
Yeah, and it's come back to this range now, which has been trading at this range for a fair bit. And to me, that chart looks like a company that's waiting for something to happen. So you got that big rise, and then it flattens out when everyone's trying to figure you out, and the longer you stay there at that range, so that the way I see it, the more confidence the investors are getting at, and the more substance the story has. And then at that some point in time, this is going to either take up for a rise or go for a massive dive. But look, from what we've spoken today, it's just a matter of time where those, your DFS comes in, your mining list gets done, and who knows what happens with your ISR project. There's a lot of potential for a rise. So it's just like that lull that all companies dread, right? With the potential. So where do you see that going? And do you agree with my sentiments there?
Yeah, certainly. We had an interesting year in the share price. No, we had this, so you say, went through this big high back in March. That was, and that was it sort of got a bit overheated there because we were heading towards our first index, and then some big funds piled in early to get a better price, and they pushed it up a little bit too high, and then we suffered from there. We sort of, the flag went up to the short as we moved in, and went through a period there where we got put down to where we are now. So that caused a bit of a problem because a lot of shareholders were unhappy about that. They were coming in at the wrong time, or they thought that maybe the company didn't handle it as well as possible. But we did everything we could within our powers to mitigate that. It's a very, very tricky situation to be in, and I'm very pleased to say that we actually got to a stabilization point. Like I say, we stabilized now. We've been sitting there for a long time. If we'd gone straight to where we are now without that big hump in the middle, then nothing would have been said. Probably we'd been all right. But that has caused a few issues. But now we're stabilized, and you're right. People now seem to be locked in. They're locked in a bit longer term. They're locked in to see what happens next, and they're waiting for these new big milestones to be ticked off. And we have got this whole series there, all lining up. In the next 6 months between now and starting operations at Great White, then there's 3 or 4, maybe more major milestones we're going to be ticking off. So that should be the catalyst for for a bit of a re-rating as we go forward. It's hard to judge the market now when you got COVID factors as well that really complicate things dramatically. You're never quite sure, but yeah, as we move forward now, I think these milestones, we're ready for the next stage of Andromeda, and we're ready to move into not just to be a commercial producer with cash flow, but also have these downstream potentials. We haven't even talked about HPA, which we're looking at as well in the background. Yeah. Again, it's not an immediate focus, but it's something that we've been working on, and we've been doing some considerable work on the background and getting some great results. As soon as we've got the plant running at Great White, then those things can be accelerated as well. Yeah,
look, by the sound of our discussion today, it's you're one of those companies that are in the right space in terms of no emission, and reducing carbon, and giving all the ticking all the boxes for ESG. So going forward, James, for at this point in time, what do the investors, or what could you say to those guys who are sitting on the fence, or or the investors who are getting a bit itchy and wanted to sell for a nice Christmas present? What would you say to them at this point in time?
Yeah, so I mean, I obviously can't give any advice on buying or selling.
No.
But I'll say that we're locked in for the long haul here, and we've got some amazing opportunities ahead of us, and actually in quite a short time frame now. And I would say that don't worry about what's happening right now. That we are driving everything forward. Everything is very positive. There's nothing negative out there at all. If there's anything negative out there, it's just fake news, to use a popular word. And we're moving forward. Everything's going to move forward in the right direction, and we've got some very exciting times ahead. I think if we ever talk this time next year, I think that the people who stuck with us will be some very, very happy shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your market cap, although it's quite high for what it is from a punter mentality, but for what you have and what the potential is, I think, as people say, 200 million market cap now. If you were looking at Woodside today as opposed to Woodside when it first started, it's like a difference of night and day, right? So, look, James, thanks for your time. It's always good to have a chat with you. I think it's an industry that is new, and there's quite a bit of misunderstanding or understanding of a different concept. That's not really what it's about. I hope we've been able to clear a few things up for people. But James, last words to you. Anything that you could sort of give them apart from what you've said before?
Yeah, probably. You're right there. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's the trouble with the current modern world. Being able to see through that and seeing real potential of things is important, and people doing their research is important. But what I can say about Andromeda is the Great White Project. There's 35 years of exploration and analysis and testing gone into that, and a huge resource of really high purity material. So, whatever people think about the valuation, then there's something behind that. There's something of real substance behind that, and there's nothing we do is misleading. We make every effort to be honest, and do everything as professionally as possible. And I would say, there's very exciting times ahead for any Andromeda shareholders, and and I welcome all the new ones that join us from the Minatour ranks. All
right, James. We could go forever, and we have a habit of going forever. So, thanks for your time, and have a great Christmas. Stay safe.
Thanks, Noel. I look forward to catching you in person one day.
Yes, hopefully.